Life Unrehearsed, brought to you by Lianas Senior Transition Support, helping you navigate home care and senior residences.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Delvecchio, specializing in elder care planning, downsizing, and the senior living industry. Thank you for tuning in. Coming up on the first half of the show, giant steps for students with autism. Did you know that October is Autism Awareness Month? So I thought it would be apropos to talk about some of the amazing progress being made for children and young adults with autism. And on the second half of the show, transitioning from a full-time career into retirement may not be as easy as it seems. In fact, some retirees really struggle with it. Well, we're going to be talking to a retirement consultant that will be providing us with some helpful words of advice. And I'll wrap up the show with a special organization called Hope for Dementia. We're going to be discussing the importance of early diagnosis and prevention techniques. That's coming up after the 4:30 news. Hey, I'd like to give a great big shout out to my mom, who's celebrating her 81st birthday today. Happy birthday, Ma. You know, I was talking to her this morning and she says, "Oh, I got to go, honey. I'm off to the gym." And she has her tea time booked for golf on Tuesday morning. Just amazing. So proud of her, a cancer survivor and really my rock star. So happy birthday, Ma. Enjoy your day. All right. You might have seen this all over the news. The Giant Steps Interdisciplinary Autism Center opened up at the beginning of the school year, and it's a dream come true after years of planning, fundraising, and construction. We're talking about a $54 million project that will benefit neurodiverse children and adults and their families. And I'm very proud to have the Director General of the new Giant Steps Interdisciplinary Autism Center, Tania D'Alesio, on the line. And I'd also like to welcome a very special guest, Mr. Nick Katalifos. Nick is the Director General of the English Montreal School Board. He's also the past chairman of the board at Giant Steps School of Montreal. And Nick is also a husband and proud dad to two lovely children, and his son in his early 20s is autistic. And I'd like to welcome both of you to Life Unrehearsed. Hi, Tanya, and hi, Nick.
Hi, Matt. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Great that you could join me here on a Sunday. Thank you for taking some time. Congratulations, Tanya, especially to you on the wonderful center. Looks beautiful. Let's get right into it, Tanya. How prevalent is autism in Canada?
Well, actually, Matt, in 2019, the Canadian Health Survey on Children and Youth actually revealed that 1 in 50 Canadian children aged 1 to 17 years are diagnosed as autistic. The numbers out of BC are actually showing closer to 1 in 29. I don't want to get into that too much. There's still a lot of validation behind those numbers, but basically the numbers are increasing. And in fact, more and more adults are also being diagnosed later on in their life following their own children's diagnoses. Sometimes things just start to make sense, maybe challenges they had as a child, young adults start to make sense, and they seek out that evaluation. Not always, but in many cases, it does come back that they're on the spectrum themselves.
Amazing to hear. And yes, it is increasing, and it's interesting to hear about the increasing diagnosis from adults as well. And you hear that your child may be on the spectrum, and get yourselves checked as well. So very interesting. We do know those numbers are going up. This is why a school like Giant Steps is so important. And Nick, I want to bring it over to you. Your son, it's Manoli. Am I saying that right?
Correct.
He's in his early 20s, and he's on the autism spectrum. At what age was he diagnosed?
Well, we began to. It was a pretty stereotypical type of path, to be honest. We began to notice that Manoli was kind of losing his ability to make eye contact. He wouldn't babble anymore, and so on. At the age of about a year and a half. Prior to that, it was a very normal type of development. And to make a long story short, by 3 years old, we had him assessed at the Montreal Children's Hospital at the Autism Clinic, and just a shout out there because they were absolutely wonderful to us, as they are to every family. We got the diagnosis when he was 3, and then we began to look around for daycares and so on. We had to figure out where he was going to go for daycare to try to get that development to speed up as much as possible and to help him as much as we could. So we worked through a number of therapists who did different types of therapy with him at the age of 3 to 5, let's say. Speech therapy, occupational therapy, at the time something called floor time, a little bit of ABA at the time, and then ultimately he went to daycare before entering Giant Steps at the age of 4.
You know, it's interesting as I'm listening to you, and Nick, as you know, I also have a special needs, now a
Mm-hmm.
young adult at 25, but she is neurodiverse, and a diagnosis also at 3 years old, and your world is turned upside down at that time, and you are just trying to, figure things out, and great that Manoli went to Giant Steps at the time. As a family, Nick, you, your wife, we actually had your daughter on the show earlier this year,
Mm-hmm.
just a wonderful daughter, excelling. But what would you say? What are some of the biggest challenges families face?
Well, at the time, obviously beyond the initial emotional shock and that takes place, and when one learns that there might be something different about their child, there's always a little bit of a shock, to say the least. And we went through a bit of a period there where we kind of felt a little bit lost, trying to figure out what to do, what would be best for him. As parents, we also had an older child at the time. Anna was 4.5 years old. Very different path. She was very vocal, very verbal, a lot of talking, and we saw the difference and the challenges that came into play with Manoli pretty early on. We dealt with a lot of very challenging behaviors, and I don't want to sound stereotypical because that wouldn't be right either, Matt, because every single case is very, very different.
Yes.
But in our case, we had to deal with a lot of very challenging behaviors, outbursts, and things of that nature. A lot of tough times because he had a very difficult time trying to communicate with us. It was very difficult for him to express to us what it is that he wanted or needed. So we had a very challenging time with that, and then there was the entire issue of what to do, what the practitioners to reach out to try to help him with different issues, how to deal with the whole notion of family dynamics, how to deal with the whole notion, even the parents themselves as a couple, how to deal with everything that was happening and still remain strong as a couple. There's a lot of issues that families go through in these situations that others, I think, need to try to understand and to put into context. It's a lot that families go through, and that's why so many supports are necessary, programs are necessary. Schools like Giant Steps, schools in the public system need to deal with this stuff and to help out families on a daily basis. It's important, I think, to try to establish a network around yourself, both as an individual, as a parent, and as a family unit. And we were able to do that, thankfully, with the help of a lot of good friends and family members.
Listening to Life Unrehearsed, Matt D'Alesio here. October is Autism Awareness Month, and I'm talking with the Director General of the new Giant Steps Interdisciplinary Autism Center. And you just heard Nick Katalifos, who's the Director General of the English Montreal School Board, and whose son is on the spectrum. Tania, I'll bring it over to you. We have talked about education. Children and young adults with special needs can find it difficult in a regular school, if I can use that in italics. What are some of the struggles they would face in school?
Well, actually, Matt, because we have the Director General of the EMSB on the line with us, who's a great friend, I do want to put a shout out to the regular school system who do a fantastic job with what they have available. That being said, a school like Giant Steps is a second-line service, and many of our students, come to us because in the school system, in the public sector, it is difficult to meet certain needs that they have. So for sure, what I'm going to talk about is not an exhaustive list, but some of the challenges that students that have come to Giant Steps had in the regular system, if they had started there, was the class sizes. For sure, some of the class sizes in the regular stream can be in the upwards of 24 students. Then there's the adult-to-child ratio. So in a class of 24 students, you can easily have just one teacher, maybe a behavior, a technician as well. There's the noise, the lighting, being overstimulated sensory-wise, and actually in some cases being understimulated as well. In addition, in regular schools, there's just not enough access to therapies. And these are very important therapies, especially in the early intervention stage. So occupational therapy, speech and language, music therapy, art therapy, etc. I mean, basically, they're just not able to deal with those higher support needs that these students have. And these students, for example, all of my students at Giant Steps have very specific individualized education plans. And in order to properly meet those goals, well, you really do need a very, I'd say, not just a multidisciplinary team, but also a multidisciplinary team with a lot of experience, and to be able to work very closely with the pedagogical team. It's quite a dance.
Yeah, so true. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the advantages and all the wonderful services you're offering at Giant Steps. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges post-school, trying to integrate into society and actually trying to get a job. There's some wonderful things going on. And welcome back to Life on Rehearse. Matt Del here. October is Autism Awareness Month, and I'm talking to the Director General of the new Giant Steps Interdisciplinary Autism Center, Tania D'Alesio, and Mr. Nick Katalifos. Nick is the Director General of the English Montreal School Board, and his son is on the autism spectrum. So much to cover here, Tania and Nick. We're going to get right into the actual Giant Steps School. Just opened up this school year, a huge project, many years in the works. And Tania, when did the doors open officially, and where is it located?
So we actually opened on August 31st to our staff, and the students came in on September 5th. So it's located at 4400 Molson. That's in the Rosemont La Petite Patrie neighborhood, which is actually even closer into the Société de Développement Angus, or otherwise known as Angus Yards. So we're quite excited about the area that we've moved into. It's extremely beautiful, and they were very welcoming to us.
Beautiful it is. So glad to see that you had so much press, both in the Anglophone and Francophone media, and really a lot of time and effort obviously went into this. And I'd just like to know, I had some questions about how the Giant Step School was funded.
Well, Matt, that's a great question. I'm sure for those who've been following us on, in the media have seen that it is a $54 million project. So in terms of cost, really, the cost went up because of inflation. We originally were hoping that we could keep the cost at 51.4, but due to inflation, that did go up to 54. Both parents, past and present, raised on their own $1.7 million. Wow. The Quebec government actually gave us 18.7, and the remainder was basically private funding. So I would like to, just give a little shout out to our foundation because they did start their capital campaign, I believe, 1 week before the COVID pandemic hit. So it was definitely very close to a miracle what they accomplished.
They really did, and nice to see the end result. Tania, I would like to get into some of the details about Giant Steps and what sets them apart from other schools, both private and public. And you mentioned some of the challenges that students have, we'll call it in so-called regular schools, and what has Giant Steps done to address these issues?
Sure. I don't know if we want to speak a little bit about the regular school system as well in terms of what they offer, but I just want to be very clear that we are a second-line service, which means there's 12 adapted private schools such as ours in Quebec. We are the only one since 1980 that has been providing educational services specifically to the autistic community. The other thing that really makes us stand apart from the other schools, including the adapted schools, is that we have an inclusion program. So what that means is that some of our students who are at Giant Steps basically get selected to go into their neighborhood schools and to learn alongside, children of the same age so that they could mimic socially appropriate behaviors, with the idea that this inclusion, they might go 1, 2, or 3 days a week, leads to an actual full transition into that very school. So we basically send the students back into the regular school once they've had our services for a while. So I don't know if, Nick, you want to speak a little bit about the the supports that are available in the public sector as well.
I actually wanted to bring Nick up, and just to for our listeners, as a reminder, Nick Katalifos, he's the Director General of the English Montreal School Board. And Nick, I know there's a tremendous amount of work and effort being done for students, neurodiverse students. So maybe share with our listeners, from your perspective, I keep saying this regular school, but the reality is you have to adapt to many of your students. Can you tell us a bit?
Well, to begin with, I think one of the things I'm proudest of as DG of the English Montreal School Board is the fact that our student population is as diverse as it is. We've got about just over 19,000 students at the EMSB in the youth sector, and we have at least 1,000 kids that have been diagnosed with some form of autism. So it's a very large group of kids, and we do, I believe, a really terrific job with them. The vast majority of them are in the regular class settings. We've got some of these kids, a certain percentage that are in specialized classes as well. But we've also gone the road as much as possible of integrating the kids in regular school life. I'm going to call it that, and that involves teachers who are highly specialized, along with childcare workers and techs who work with the kids in the specialized classes. Normally, we have smaller group sizes, and the goal is always to try to get the students to wind up in a regular classroom setting. And obviously, we share a wonderful partnership not only with Giant Steps, but with other private schools in the public interest. I'm going to call it that deal with special needs, such as Summit, Peter Hall, and others. And when it's warranted, when most importantly the parents feel that it's warranted, and something perhaps more is needed in terms of therapeutic needs and so on, that's when the kids normally get referred to other schools, such as Giant Steps. I think Tania will certainly agree that the partnership between Giant Steps and the school board has been exemplary. It's been there for a very long time. I think the biggest group of kids or number of kids at Giant Steps are indeed coming from the EMSB, and the goal is for the kids, where possible, after, depending on the child, a certain number of years, is for them to reintegrate into the regular school system. But on that level, Matt, I think the notion of partnerships is major. I think that's something that we all need to focus on in the school system. These are the types of partnerships that really lead to success for our students. And one example, and Tania can speak to this as well, is the fact that we've had a great partnership between the Giant Steps and the EMSB when it comes to adult education. Right. We have several classes that deal with this topic at Giant Steps, 3 groups, if I'm not mistaken, Tania. That partnership is a direct one as well. Perhaps you can touch on that a bit.
Matt, if we have some time, I just wanted to be clear for the audience that, we are based, this new center that we've just opened up is based on 4 distinct but dynamic pillars. So there's the Giant Step School, which has been in existence since 1980. Now we have the Adult Education and Employment Services, which is definitely via partnership through the EMSB. So we're very proud about that we partnered with the EMSB to add this Adult Education and Employment Services for the 21 plus, the school being for 4 to 21 years old. Then we have the Resource and Training Center, which has been also in existence for about 18 years. And I'd like to highlight that even if you're not a Giant Steps student, if you're a family of an autistic child or you are autistic yourself, you can always reach out for help from the Resource and Training Center. And then the final pillar is the Research and Innovation, which is through TAC, which is the Transforming Autism Care Consortium. It's about over 80 researchers and 275 graduate students, but this whole group is going to be partnering with us to basically create a living lab at Giant Steps in our new center.
It's really encouraging to hear, and unfortunately we are out of time. We could talk more and more. I do want to mention, though, and you mentioned talking, Nick, about integrating into regular schools, but you at Giant Steps and the EMSB do such a fantastic job of trying to integrate into society and into the real workforce. My daughter is a prime example at 25 years old, thank goodness, with an employer who understands the needs of special needs people, and now is working and contributing to society. So God bless you. And thank you for all that you do. If people want to find out, our listeners want to find out a little bit more about Giant Steps, where should they go, Tania?
So basically our main number is 514-935-1911. All information should be sent through this email address, which is reception@giantstepsmontreal.com. And if you'd like to have more information on our website, it's giantstepsmontreal.com as well. Thank you so much, Matt, for this platform. I really, really appreciate being asked to be on the show today. And happy birthday to your mom.
Right. Well, thank you, Tania. And thank you very much, Nick, for taking some time on such an important initiative here on a Sunday.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
That's Tania D'Alesio, Director General of the New Giant Steps Interdisciplinary Autism Center, and Nick Katalifos, the Director General of the English Montreal School Board. As you heard, both really doing some wonderful things for children, students, young adults, neurodiverse, and autism. So thank you for all that you do. Next up on Life Unrehearsed, you worked hard so you can have a nice retirement, right? Well, then you find out that the transition from your career into retirement is not so easy after all. In fact, many people struggle in their post-work life. I'm going to be talking to a retirement consultant specializing in this field. That's coming up after a CTV News update.